Hi everyone, welcome or welcome back. If you're new here, my name's Nina, and today I want to talk about this strange phenomenon that I have definitely been experiencing that I know I'm not alone in because I literally hear other people talking about it all the time. And I'm willing to bet it's something that you have noticed happening in your own life, especially the past couple of years after the pandemic. And that's a feeling like we've literally lost the last couple of years, like time is passing by, but we don't really even remember what has happened. Now, I know collectively we're all just kind of mentally and emotionally exhausted with everything that's going on, but it really does seem like all of a sudden we've become perfectly fine with living these very dull, repetitive, uneventful lives. We don't really go anywhere, we don't really do anything or seek out new experiences, and we spend a lot more time thinking about the past and just generally feeling like life used to be a lot better. And the weird thing is that I have been thinking about this a lot lately, and I just started reading this book that appeared to be on a completely different topic called How People Learn by Nick Shackleton-Jones. And so I'm casually reading this book, and all of a sudden he brings up exactly what we're talking about and perfectly sums up what everybody is going through, and then offers this insightful articulation as to why. And it has to do with the idea that our lives are measured in adventures and not years, and how there are a million things that we can do to make ourselves miserable, but he believes the single thing that can cause the most damage in our lives is getting trapped in a routine. He then goes on to ask the reader to imagine for a moment what would happen if our lives became so predictable and routine that every single day is almost identical. And I had to stop and laugh for a second because I don't think any of us really have to imagine that. I think that is the absolute reality for most of us. I don't think that we set out to live our lives that way, but I think that is what many of us are doing. And he goes on to explain that what happens when we do live our lives this way is that at the end of our lives, we've basically only lived one day. This is because our brain does not vividly remember every little thing. It only really retains these snapshots of the memorable things. It hangs on to the highlight reel only. And when we don't really have any highlights in our life anymore, it's almost like those days don't even count to our brain. In the book, he says we live only to the extent of our feelings. We live only so far as our stories. He also talks about something that I've read a lot of research on, which is the fact that we tend to recall a lot more memories from our teenage years up through our early 20s, and then it kind of tapers off a bit. And this is because we tend to engage in a lot more memorable experiences during this time. We are still exploring, we are still thinking of life as an adventure, and we're doing a lot of things for the very first time. He goes on to talk about how novelty and emotional intensity work hand in hand in creating lasting memories. And I do think this is something that we all know, but I also think that we are completely out of practice in making these things a priority in our life. In fact, I can't think of a single person right now who would actually consider their life to be an adventure. And I know we could give a million excuses as to why this is the case. We're tired, everything's expensive, we like having a routine because it keeps us in our comfort zone, or we have so many responsibilities that it seems impossible to actually live life. And because of all of these things, I think we've all kind of gotten stuck in survival mode. We are no longer living, we're just kind of repeating the same day over and over and over again. And the worst part is, for most of us, it's a pretty mediocre day. And as the author says, when we live a dull life, our life shrinks. I think that's why so many of us spend so much time reminiscing about the past when we were traveling and learning and creating adventures and still enjoying life. The truth is that our brain really does crave novelty, and when we ignore that fact, we end up starving ourselves both emotionally and mentally. And that's not only really sad, but it's also completely horrible for us. So long story short, this book was a complete wake-up call for me, and I truly hope that this video is your wake-up call to get out of your comfort zone, to embrace the unexpected, and to finally start living again instead of just living in survival mode. And for those of us who don't even know where to begin because we've been in survival mode for so long, I will link down several videos down below in the description box that have a whole bunch of suggestions on how to have more fun and to get inspired again. And really, there is no one way to do this. It all starts with awareness and that realization that our life is measured in adventures and not years. And so we need to get a little bit more adventurous so our life does not completely pass us by. So as always, I truly hope that you found today's message to be inspiring. It was definitely something that I needed to hear myself. I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope the rest of your day is extraordinary.